Hello and good morning, everyone, to this webinar with the Spain-US Chamber of Commerce, uh, where we are going to talk about a very interesting topic that it's important to understand a little bit about before entering the US market. And it's specifically about keys to complying with FDA regulations for cosmetics, medical devices, and over-the-counter drugs. But before I introduce you our guests from today, let me just remind a few things. The Spain-US Chamber of Commerce is a nonprofit organization that fosters businesses between Spain and the United States and help companies develop their products and their services in both countries. We host many different events and activities during the year, and I encourage you to check our website to see what are the next activities and events that we will host. You can check all the information in www.spainuschamber.com. Also, this webinar will be recorded and we will share with all the attendees the video and the presentation as well. And we will also upload the video to our YouTube channel, where you can also check all the other webinars that we've been hosting for the last 3 years. So don't miss the opportunity to learn about this and many other topics that we covered in these years. Also, we will have some times for Q&A, for questions. So at the end of the presentation, we will address all the questions from the audience and we'll be glad to hear any comments that you might have. But in order to send your questions, you don't need to wait until the end. You can send your questions during the presentation. And in order to do so, you just need to click on the questions tab that will appear on the control panel, probably on the right side of your screen. You might see there a small control panel, and one of the tabs says questions. You just need to click there, write your question, send it to us, and we will take care of all the questions at the end of the presentation. And now, without further ado, let's start with the keys to complying with FDA regulations for cosmetics, medical devices, and over-the-counter drugs. And we will have to thank Biocentics for helping us put together this information. For those that haven't heard or don't know who Biocentics is, Biocentics is a trusted partner in pharmaceutical development, regulatory strategies, and related fields throughout LATAM. The company operates cutting-edge analytical and galenic laboratories, providing flexible medical, legal, and scientific solutions designed to facilitate the successful entry of medicinal, biotechnological, cosmetic, medical, veterinary, and nutraceutical products into both local and global markets. Their team of professionals comply with GLP and GMP standards, consistently meeting project deadlines. So they are the right partner to learn about FDA requirements and how to comply with them. And in order to talk about that, we have Maria Garola with us, which is Vice President at Biocentics. Maria, with over 15 years of experience in the regulatory and quality assurance fields within the pharmaceutical, biotech, and medical device industries, serves as principal consultant at Biocentics, specializing in the Latin American market. Since joining the company in 2016, she has demonstrated expertise in managing complex regulatory projects and delivering training across 20 Latin countries, navigating diverse regulatory environments, and ensuring compliance with both local and international standards. Maria's dedication to practical and strategic regulatory solutions has made her a trusted advisor in optimizing processes and driving innovation. So welcome, Maria, to this webinar.
Hi, Juan Carlos. Thank you for inviting me for this webinar.
So whenever you like, let's start to dive in this process, and we will welcome the questions, and we'll address all the questions at the end of the presentations.
Perfect. Okay, let's go. This is my presentation. Well, today we are going to talk about these keys for compliance of these regulated products in US. And what is important to know is that we help companies from all around the world to enter to different markets. One of them is US. And one thing that is super key to understand is the classification of the products. So the products are classified by the health authorities differently in each country. So your product could be a cosmetic or could be a medicine in your country, but when you are exporting to US, the FDA would consider that a different kind of product. There are exceptions. There are products that you know that's medical device gonna be medical device, but there are other products that you won't be sure. For example, the bags for the blood transfusions, the blood transfusion bags, that products in the EU, in many countries in Latin America are medical devices, but in US is a combined product, is combined between medicine and medical devices, and the way of medicine classification there has a lot more information, a lot more documents, and evaluations are completely different from a traditional medical device. So to understand what is my product in the destination country is very important, and not always is the same of your country of origin. Also, there is not only one law that you have to see, or only one agency. Now we are talking about FDA, but if today that we talk about over-the-counter products, you need to know that there are other agencies of the US government that regulates these products. For example, the FTC, there's the Federal Trade Commission. They are going to see your advertisement, and for cosmetic, the FTC have set more regulations about what you could and what you cannot say, and they check more advertisement than the FDA in some cases. So there are more than one agency, and there are different laws that applies, and not just the law, but you need to know that that US has a federal code where you are gonna find different articles that apply to your product, and they are not organized for you to read it at once. So you need to know the existence of different articles in different parts of the federation, the code, CFR they name this code. Then there are the regulatory pathways. There is not just one way to go from to get the approval or to get the product registered, ready to be imported. In some cases, you have different pathways to get the approval, depending on the classification of your product, the intended purpose of your product, the size of your company. So there are so many variables that you need to know, and so many regulatory pathways that may exist in US, but it don't exist in Europe, for example, or in another country. For example, regarding the regulatory pathways for medical device, you have one pathway that is for like a generic, like for a medical device that you produce and is similar to a product that is already registered and approved in FDA. And that pathway that doesn't exist in many other countries. It's very specific of this country. Also, the labeling compliance, that's for any regulated products, you need to comply the rules, and also set by the FDA, but set for other legislation that you have for products ready for consumers. So you need to comply with some tariff that has to do for example, that if the product is imported, it needs to show that it's made in and the name of the country in English. So that's specific, that wasn't set by the FDA, but it needs to be in the packaging. So we are going to talk more about the labeling. And also, you need to do some post-marketed activities. Some things for regulated products are recommended or you need to comply with the current regulations, and some things are good for your regulatory intelligence procedure and see what's coming next. So the first thing, as I told you, is to get your product classified correctly for the US market. So you need to know what's the intended purpose of your product or the intended use. As you can see in this in my screen now, you would see there is a deodorant that it says aluminum free, and then there is the Head and Shoulders that's for the anti-dandruff, and then there is another antiperspirant, sorry, with and deodorant, and then there is another traditional like normal shampoo. If you see any of these products in most of the countries, these are considered cosmetics, but not for the US. Why? For the US, there is a category called combined, also combined between a cosmetic and a medicine. So in the case of the Head and Shoulders, that is an anti-dandruff, as it is to prevent a disease, the dandruff is a disease, so it is considered a medicine and a cosmetic. So it's both. Of course, as a medicine is more regulated, it has more regulations about what you can say, what can you not say in the label, or what's the quality that is expected for this kind of product. But this is another category. It's a medicine over the counter. And then in the case of the antiperspirant, the DAB, as it is antiperspirant and it has aluminum hydroxide, in that case, this is a medicine over the counter. For most of the countries, it is cosmetic. So you need to understand that this looks like the same in some regulations in some countries, but it's not the same in US, and you will have to comply with different rules for each one of these products. Starting with cosmetics, well, cosmetic has been very poorly regulated till 2022. I mean poorly because it has a big regulation over the labeling, but it was most of it because then in the federal law you would find like 12 ingredients that were prohibited to be used in cosmetics, but that was most it. And we are going to see also the color additives that have a specific regulation, but it wasn't a very strong regulation. In 2022, what appeared was a new law that you might have listened about it, that is MOCRA. And then MOCRA establishes many things that we're going to go through, some of them. And one of the main things that they say, okay, a cosmetic needs to have like a specific formula. So they didn't even have that in the law before. This is what was before that I was telling you about, the forbidden ingredients. It's a very, very old list. And what happened with MOCRA is that they didn't set a new list of ingredients, or they didn't say, okay, we agree with COLIPA or with any international list of forbidden ingredients for cosmetics. So they leave it open for the states to decide mostly. So what we've seen in US, like you know that there are 51 states, and they are deciding different forbidden ingredient lists and different rules for cosmetics. So it's making it has created a complexity there. Then another thing for cosmetic that is important is the color additives. This is exclusive for the US. I haven't seen this problem in any other country in the world yet. I haven't worked with all of them, but this is very specific. Here you will have where in the law you will find these articles. But what you need to know, if your cosmetic have a color additive included in the formula, you need to check if it is included as a permitted color additive to be used in cosmetic. This is written by the FDA, so that you need to know if it is allowed to be used. Once, if your product, if your color additive is allowed to be used, then you will need to know if it is required for it to have a certification. What does it mean? FDA have like a laboratory to check to test in the laboratory all the color additives, all the batches of the color additives that require certification. There is very specific color additives that require certification, and they are very, very like popular of popular use. They are not very, they are not strange color additives. So you need to check this, and you need they publish FDA the companies that they have been testing the color additives, and also they have this email that I left you there that you can check of FDA if you are using a color additive to check if it was tested and if it is okay to be used. So it's very complicated the scenario to use color additives. I suggested not use color additives at all, or try to find the ones that do not require certification. But well, let's go to MOCRA. So what does the new law stated in 220? They require like the responsible person. This is a very unspecific person, unspecific, because it could be the manufacturer of the product, the packager of the product, or the distributor of the product in the US. They need to appear in the label. And what are the responsibilities of this responsible person? Is the safety substantiation and the adverse event report. These are the two main responsibilities of this responsible person that needs to appear in the label. Regarding the safety substantiation, there is no specific requirement. Till now, the FDA haven't issued a guideline of how should we do a safety substantiation. Most of the clients takes the template that, or the model that they use in Europe. But what the FDA suggested in all the trainings they have done is that the literature research should include some information that it's published in the website of the US, that maybe in the templates that you use for another countries, you don't take that into account. They would like to see that in the safety substantiation. You don't need to submit the safety substantiation, but the responsible person that you choose need to have this safety substantiation for every product that you, a cosmetic product that you market in US. Regarding the adverse event report, this responsible person need to have need to receive the adverse event report, and if they are serious, that it has to do with death or with very serious consequences, or any medical treatment to avoid to get the serious consequences. So maybe it's a very big scenario for a serious adverse report, need to be reported to FDA in 15 business days. How you reported it? There is a form. It's the same form that that is used for medicines or medical devices. They are trying to change or update this system of report for cosmetic, but still there isn't news about it. And you can submit it via email, also more information with the labels, or via mail. What else do MOCRA request? They request listing of manufacturing plants and products. What you need to know is you don't have a fee, like FDA didn't establish a fee for cosmetics or manufacturing plant of cosmetics, which is good because the fees are very high in US. Then the product listing need to be updated annually. That's always in US all the updates need to be done between October and December of each year. Then you need to comply with good manufacturing practices for cosmetic. That's a very complicated issue because they haven't approved a good manufacturing practice rule. So they are still, there is something that was written, I think, before MOCRA, and it's being reviewed, but by now there isn't a new guideline or rule about a good manufacturing practice in US. We are waiting for it. They are also working in talc regulated rule to test asbestos. Fragrance allergen, still, it was supposed to be published by July, but it wasn't, so we are still waiting for that. And PF reports, still waiting for that. Regarding this listing of the manufacturing plant, it says in an online website, and you will be required to, if you have your manufacturing plant, it's outside of US, you will require to have a FDA agent. That's a person or a company that serves you as receiving all the emails, all the contacts of the FDA, and getting in communication with both the company and FDA. So, and all the products should be listed, and all the manufacturing plants should be listed too, but there are some exceptions. There are exceptions for small companies, small business in US, it's in the law what you need to understand as a small business, and that it is that the average gross annual sales in the US in the previous 3 years should be less than $1 million, adjusted by inflation. So if you are a new company starting to marketing your products, your cosmetic products in US, you are not obliged to do the listing, manufacturer, and the products. But if you're starting, if you start with sales over 1 million in the current year, you are obliged to do these registrations. It's a very administrative registration, so if you can, it's advisable to do it. This small business exemption only applies if you are not producing any of these 4 products that I put some examples in the right. So if you are producing some products that are like makeup or the ink for the tattoos or mouthwash because they are intended for internal use, or any other long-lasting products, in that case, even though you are a small company, you are obliged to do the listing and the registration. This is the plan of FDA of implementation that they had. Now they are a little behind it. So how they are expecting companies to comply with MOCRA in the future, and how this is gonna be implemented in the plan by 2026. To know more about how are we in this line of implementation, you can send an email. Here is the email about question about MOCRA to FDA, or also what they recommend that you follow in Twitter or X to FDA Cosmetic. And this is the doctor that is Dr. Bumpus. She's working in implementation of MOCRA. She's the leader in implementation, so you can follow her to see if something new is coming. And that's what she recommends to do to know what's the new updates for cosmetics in US. Okay, regarding the labeling, you need to know that you in the law you have two display panels. The principal display panel is the one that you have to see. It's in the front of the product. It's the one that you see first as a consumer, and it needs to have the name of the product, or the identity, the name of the product, I mean the trademark, no? Then the identity of the product, that it needs to be the identity that a traditional Native American would understand. It couldn't be something that, because it's for the final consumer, it needs to be in a way that a final consumer can understand in America. So we have seen change between products in UK and US, how they mention the name of the product. Also, there is a warning in the case specific in the law, that's the article of the law, that you need to include a warning statement, a specific warning statement in case that any of the ingredients is like an innovative ingredient and you are not sure about the safety or you don't have the safety substantiation. It needs to be in the packaging also. And the net quantity of contents, and that in that sense you need to take into account that US do not use the metric system. So they are talking about fluid ounces, and other measurements very different from milliliters and grams that we are used to in other countries. Then there are the other panels that not in the front. And in the other panels, you need to include the directions of use, warnings, name and place of business. In this case, now that with MOCRA, you need to include the name and place of the responsible person. Ingredient declaration, they do not require to use the INCI name. So you can use it with parentheses, but it needs to be again, like in the identity case, in the local language use, like a normal use of a common American. It needs to be the ingredient declaration. This is what I told you before, that because MOCRA left some things without regulation, like the list of prohibited ingredients, or then some states like California, Washington, that you need to check that, they made their own regulations. So in the case of California, if your company sells products in California, the company needs to register or list in some cosmetic that contains some specific substance that the government of California have determined that could cause cancer, birth defects, and other reproductive harm. And they have a different understanding in California, sorry, I'm coming back, about what is a small company. So you are exempt to do this, but only if your company makes 1 million or more annually, makes less than 1 million or more annually worldwide in aggregate cosmetic sales. It's different from the definition of small businesses for the FDA. So be careful with this. So I leave you the link so you can make the appropriate report. Then regarding the medicines over the counter, for medicines over the counter, you have 3 different pathways in US. The medicine could be an OTC monograph, could be an ANDA, or could be an NDA. If it is an OTC monograph, that means that it do not require an approval before marketing. It's just the listing of the product, and you can start to market the product the next day, the following day. If it is an NDA or NDA, NDA means a new drug application. ANDA is an abbreviated, and both requires approval before marketing. So the approval could take months, years, and the OTC is just one day to the next, you are ready to market. What is an OTC monograph? The OTC monograph is like a recipe book that FDA approved, and they have actually 32 approved monograph. Each monograph is organized by therapeutic category, and it includes, for example, for acne, So you have for acne, these are the ingredients that are approved for acne in this OTC monograph. It's the dosage included, the indications, the labeling, including the warnings you need to include in the labeling. So it's pretty standard what you can put in the labeling, put in the formula. They do not talk about excipients, but they do say, okay, if you have this active ingredient, this is the concentration that you could work, or no more than X%. In the case of the drugs in OTC monograph, there were changes in 2020 after the COVID. It appeared the CARES Act, and what they do is this monograph, there were many monographs, more than 32, sorry, and some of these monographs were in tentative approval for many years, and companies were marketing those products without having like the or approved or not approved monograph. And also, as you know, you might know that what it is an OTC monograph is the sunscreen factor, the sunscreen ingredients. And they are very old compared to Europe, what is approved to be used in the US, and because they haven't updated the sunscreen ingredient for a long time. So what appears in CARES Act is two new names, two new things, OMUFA and OMOR. OMUFA is a facility fee for renewal, so all the facilities that produce medicine need to be listed in CEDER, that's the website of FDA. It's a very administrative way of registering the manufacturer plant, and you don't need to pay a fee when you register the facilities. But when you renew your facility, due to OMUFA since 2020, you need to pay a fee for the facility. And I think it's about $22,000 approximately per facility, something like that. And this OMUFA fee do not have like a small business reduction. In some other in some other kind of product or pathway, you can find some waivers, but not here. And then you have another procedure that's called OMOR. That's in the case that FDA or that you as a company wanted to include a new, for example, a new sunscreen ingredient in these monographs. It's very expensive also, it's like $500,000 if your company wants to do it. But also it's FDA that's reviewing the OTC monograph. For example, they just review the monograph for cough, and they take the phenylephrine that was for nasal, for nasal use, and they take out because they review and they realize that it has a lack of efficacy. So the phenylephrine is going to be out of OTC monograph way of marketing. In the case that your product requires approval, here are the requirements for this submission. This submission could take here in the right. You can see depending on the therapeutical area, how long could it take? It could be for 180 days to 450 days for dermatology. So it would be a very long process, and you will need to submit all the clinical trials to get the new entity approval. In the case of a generic, it could take less, but still it's gonna have a lot of requirements of documentation and longer processes to get the product to the market. This is the traditional step for the easy pathway. That's the monograph, the OTC monograph. The first step is you need to get the DUNS. That's a number you can request in a lawyer organization that FDA trusts. So This organization is worldwide, it's for free. If you are in a rush, you can get the DUNS in a fastest process. I think it's 2 weeks, but you need to pay a fee for that. Otherwise, it could take till 30 days and it's for free. When you get the DUNS of your company, you need to submit some information about the company. And then you go to the website of FDA and you can make the registration with the DUNS and the FDA agent. For any manufacturer plant that is abroad, it needs an FDA agent to be to have the representation between the FDA and the manufacturer plant abroad. And then you do the registration. You can check in the drug establishment registration site if it is okay, register your plant. Take into account that there are 2 different ways to register a manufacturing plant. One is if you, for OTC monograph product, if you are the owner of the product and you are marketing your product, and the other one is you are a CMO. If you are a company that another company outsources the production, and in that case, you have different fees, only in that case. And in that case, in the OTC monograph that is an outsourcing, you may not appear in the establishment registration. Then you need to require FDA for a labeler code. All medicines need to have a labeler code. It's for the manufacturer, and FDA will give you like 5 numbers. They are running out of numbers, so they are trying to know how to change this system, but by now it's like that. And then you will get the NDC. That's the NDC number is something that you gave to your product, and you need to put it in the label, and you would include the 5 number of your labeler code, and then you need to add 3 more numbers for the product and 2 for the package code. The product code could be, I don't know, for the diclofenac is 1, 2, 3, and then for the package code, if you have for 10 tablets, it's 001, and for 30 tablets, it's 02. So these are the main steps to get the OTC monograph product listing, and after that, you are ready to market. Regarding the labeling, they talk about the principal display packaging. So in the case of the medicine, if it is, for example, ibuprofen, you will have to state that the use of that medicine in the principal display packaging, like pain reliever, fever reducer. You will find that also in the OTC monograph. Then the net content that needs to be in a specific part of the packaging. It's always below in the inferior part of the PDP, in the principal display panel. And then you have to include, not requiring the principal display panel, but it needs to be somewhere in the packaging, the name and address of the manufacturing site, and the drug fact box. This is what you see in the right. You will see the drug fact box. If you are checking in the market different products that you are not sure if it is a medicine or a cosmetic, you would see in the back, and if they have this square square with this information in this organized like this, that's a medicine. That's a drug facts, that's a medicine, and it has there is a rule for how you organize this with this specific bullet point, with this specific type of letter, and these very specific sections. So this needs to be organized as it is in the I shown in the screen. There are specific warnings that are included in the monograph. Also, there are warnings that you would find in different parts of the CFR. Here are the numbers, like 201, 21. You will have, depending of the type of product, or including like general warnings, like the pregnancy and breastfeeding, that needs to be included in every product. And you need to take into account. Also, You need to know that for over-the-counter medicines, tamper evidence is obligatory, but there are some exceptions. But in general, it's obligatory, and these products need to have a statement that if the printed band is missing or broken, it should be used. Regarding pharmacovigilance, the serious events report to FDA is with the same form and needs to be submitted to FDA with 15 business days of receipt. So in that case, it's the same that we were talking about for cosmetic. And the definition of serious event is the same. And one thing that you need to know is that for OTC monograph, a toll-free number that you've seen in this label here that many companies have question comments in below at call toll-free. Many companies have it. It's not obligatory for OTC monograph, but it is obligatory for NDA. However, it's recommended because it's a way that the consumer can make questions or can make a report. Well, and talking about a little bit about medical devices. In the case of medical devices, well, there are so many medical devices because it goes from an X-ray to a bandage. It's a very big group of products. So you need to be sure that it complies with the definition of medical device and it doesn't have a chemical action, or it needs to be metabolized to have the actions in the patient. It is used to prevent or treat diseases. So it needs to be under the definition of FDA. FDA have a different classification. So once you decide that your product is a medical device, you need to do a sub-classification and need to determine which risk has this for the patient, and the risk is different classified from other health authorities in the world. So we have 3 levels of risk. The number 1 is the lowest, and the number 3 is the highest risk. And you need how you determine which applies to your product. It could be different and maybe not relate to the country of origin. So what you need to know is that if you have doubts about how to classify your product, if it is class 1, class 2, or class 3, or even if it is a medical device, there are 2 options to have answers in FDA. Here is the email that you can make like a yes or no question, sending some information to FDA, and they really answer you if it is a medical device or if it is class 2 or yes or no questions, and that's for free and they answer. And then there is a formal request that has a fee. It takes 60 days. It's an official answer. It's an official submission that is 513G. So you can also request a classification for FDA. But if you want to get your product classified, at least to have an idea, or if it is an easy product, or you know that exists something, you can do one of these 3 methods, or you can use the 3 in case, just to be sure. You can search the product classification database, and then you can see if there is a product that's similar to the product that you wanted to market. Also, you can check in other database that are PMA, 1510Ks, and de novo. These are 3 pathways, regulatory pathways for this type of product, and you might find your products there also. And then the other one, it's another database that you can find information about the registration, establishment, and the device listing database. So there are 3 different databases where you can find information, and you will have an idea of what your product is classified. There is a code, a classification of 3 letters that they gave to the class of the product that would give you more insight of where your product is classified and what will be your requirements. So all medical devices in US need to be listed or registered, all. But then there are two different options in case of, as I said before, there is like a pathway for kind of generics that's called 1510K. This 510K is when there is a substantially equivalence of your product, and you can compare it to a product that is already marketed in US as a medical device, and there is no safety or efficacy concerns. So, and that's the fees for this kind of product. And then if your product is completely new, or it has some advantages or more efficacy or some different safety, or you cannot assure the equivalence, then you have to go for like de novo or PMA. So in those you have different fees, also different pathways, very long pathways. What you need to know for medical device, if you have a product to market in this category, is the annual established registration fee. This is a fee that you need to pay at the beginning. So it's very different from the registration of medicines that you pay when you renew. In the case of OTC monograph, in these cases, you pay at the beginning the registration, and there are no waivers for the manufacturer plant, and it's very high to start with, like $10,000 for 2025 for the manufacturing plant. Then, depending on the category of your product, it's not here, but sorry. Depending on the category of your product, then you have to pay the fee or not. There is, if you are in category 1 and 2, there are some exceptions, that is 510K accepted products, where you don't need to pay a fee, and it's like a listing of the product, and that's it. You do not need to go through an evaluation process and approval process. This is an example of the general labeling for medical devices. There are specific parts in the regulations for specific devices. In the case of OTC medical devices, you will see the same that you will see in medicine, like you need to have the identity, the name of the product, but you will have here more of these signs that are different, that are only used for this kind of product. You will have also, it's another requirement specific of this type of product is the UD number. That's a number that you need to require, for example, to GS1 organization to track all of the devices. But more or less, you're gonna see the same requirements you see for the other type of products. For the adverse report requirements, in general, there are different requirements for manufacturers and importers in this kind of product. Here is 30-day calendar. Before we were talking about 15 days for medicines and cosmetics. For serious events or malfunctions. And it says in the table 5-day report, that's in the case FDA sent you a request for report because they get the information from the market that there is a problem, so they can send you a letter saying 5 days. Or if there is a harm to the public health of this, if it's gonna be a problem for the public health, you need to report in 5 days, but the normal thing is 30 days. Then the post-marketing, to finish with the post-marketing and final recommendations. There are many updates, and now the government is changing also in US, so there are gonna be news for FDA, I think, next year. So one of the things that is being that already has changed but it's being implemented for medical devices, is the quality management system that's required for most of the medical devices. It changed the regulation to comply with the ISO 13485. That's the same that is used in Europe, I think, in most of the countries. So they are more aligned now with this, and the GMP audits are going to change. So they are in a period of implementation, but that's what the law changed. Follow other changes with the new government also. Then there is an annual reported for medicine. Even for OTC medicines, you need to make these reports or make sure that the company in US are making this annual reporting. It's about reporting the quantity that is imported and distributed in US. Then take into account that FDA renewal timeline mostly is from October to December. So every year, check that. They let you know with emails and everything, but before that, you lost the registration. Then compliance requirements. So take into account that you need to comply with GMP, even though they, for example, for some products, there are not a GMP rule right now for cosmetics. And for medicines, you need to comply with all the GMP, because after you market your OTC product, at some point FDA can come go to your plant and check the GMP, and it needs to be aligned with the CFR for medicines. And then stay informed, like check the import alerts. There are always import alerts regarding, there was one regarding anti-age products at some point, then in the previous government it was taken out, so it didn't work anymore. But before, every product that said anti-age was stopped in custom. Then review the warning letters. FDA publish a lot of warning letters that they issue to other companies, so you can learn from other mistakes, other people's mistakes. And then monitor class action notice. We haven't talked much about this, but there are many like people that organize and make you and take you to court in US for different, like they say that you are, like the consumer is saying that the company is lying at some point. So this happens a lot. It's a lot of money for the companies. So take care about that. There are a lot of class actions going on, especially in New York and in California. You can check that database also. And I hope I didn't talk too much. I'm open to questions.
Well, thank you so much, Maria. Thank you so much for all the information. And so, yes, please send your questions. We already have a few questions, but if you want to ask any other question, please feel free to send it through the tab that says question in your control panel, probably on the right side of your screen. Just click there on questions, write your questions, click submit, and we will address all the questions right away. So let's address the questions that we have. Let me see here. So first question. You mentioned at the beginning of the presentation an exception for small businesses on the revenue obtained in the United States of $1 million. Is that $1 million just in one of the 3 previous years, or is $1 million accumulated in the last 3 years?
Is $1 million accumulated in the last 3 years in cosmetics, for example, now for the cosmetic regulation. So it needs to be in cosmetic in the accumulated in the last 3 years.
Okay, so if the company sold 500,000, 500,000, 500,000, they won't be exempt. They need to comply because at the end of the day, the accumulation is $1.5 million, right?
Exactly.
Thank you so much. Another question that we have. Okay, I have a registered medical device, which is a special wheelchair for outdoor. With all the changes that you mentioned in the presentation, what should I have into account different from last year, in which I only had to renew the registration, paying the fee?
Yeah, for medical device, I think that there is no changes in registration. So if your product is correctly classified and it's you just need to do the update in the listing of the manufacturing plant and pay the fee. Just take into account the GMP if it applies to the category, because the GMP, if at some point the FDA is gonna make an audit to your plant, they're gonna go with the new GMP regulation.
What is again the GMP? Briefly, just in case.
Good manufacturing practices.
Wonderful. And I saw that the fee increased for this year, for 2025, right? Because I think last year was around $7,000. And now it's 9,000.
It changed every year. Every year, FDA at this or a little before October, that's the renewal, they started to update the prices for next year.
Okay.
All the prices for every fee are updated now.
And they always go up, no, not down.
Yeah. No.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Additional question. Is it possible to check with the FDA regarding compliance of all types of products, including cosmetics, medical device, and over-the-counter drugs?
Yeah, well, you have to direct the email or your consult to different areas, because the departments are divided. So unless you have a combined product, you have a combined question for product, then you have to ask your question. It's in the presentation. You can ask for medical device department, for the cosmetic area, or for medicine. You need to ask the questions directly to the department.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Let's check. No questions. Here's another one. Do FDA fees always vary for small businesses?
They vary for small businesses. Well, in the case of cosmetics, there are no fees. In the case of medicines, the fees for the OTC manufacturer plant registration varies from not for small companies, but for outsourcing. So the outsourcing manufacturing plant has a smaller fee, but not for small companies. And then for OTC, you don't need to pay for a fee for the registration. And for medical devices, for the establishment registration, it doesn't vary regarding the size of your business, but it varies in the registration of products. If you need to register the medical device, you can have a lower fee for the registration of 510K or the PMA, the Novo. You have lower fees.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Another question that we have is, if a medical device is classified as Class 2 in the European Union, will it also be classified as Class 2 by the FDA?
No, not always, because it's not a direct line between the classification that Europe make and FDA makes. So you need to check in these methods, and also sometimes you need to request FDA classification with a formal procedure to be sure if your product is somehow very innovative. You need to be sure the classification, it could be different from Europe.
Okay, thank you so much. Additional question. Can non-prescription sunglasses be classified as Class 1 medical device in the United States?
Yeah, I can. We need to check the different methods. If you go through the first method of classification, if you find another product similar in that database, yeah, it might be one or might be not a medical device. You need to check that specific product in the database or with FDA directly.
Wonderful. So if when you're looking at similar devices, if you don't see that device in the database, could be maybe because they don't need at all to be a medical device. Not only that, it's
Yeah,
not a class 1, no?
probably. Yeah, probably.
So
Yeah.
so in order
If
to
it
be
is not prescribed, it's just for like I don't know how you say, but you just it's like another clothes, another wear. If it is an accessory of you might don't need to register the product because it's not to prevent or to treat any disease.
yeah, well, just to protect from the sun,
Mm.
which that could,
Well,
you know,
in that case,
because
could be you can
because
prevent
the
diseases there.
sunscreen needs to be there, so could be tricky, no?
Yeah, could be tricky. That most of medical devices are. So it needs why that's why you have 3 ways to check, and also there is a way you can ask directly to FDA for free, or if it is more complex, this is doesn't worth it. You can send an email to them.
Wonderful. Another question. Let's see the whole question here. Yeah. How should be declared the US agent in the label? We need to put address, telephone, and email. It's needed to put US agent in the label. In
No,
addition,
it's not required to have the US agent in any level. No, that's not the requirements. No. You need for cosmetics to have a responsible person, and that could be a company, that could be the importer, could be the manufacturer plant, could be the packaging plant, could be any company you decide, or could be your US agent if you decide. Then that in that case would be the name of the company, the address, and that's what's required. Then you can add the toll-free number or not, but at least the address needs to be complete of any responsible person you put in the label. When I say name and address, the address needs to be complete till the zip code. So very complete address, because if someone wants to contact you, they need to send you a mail, for example. You need to very specific.
so and how about distributors? Do they need to include the distributors in the label?
Well, no, it's not stated in the law that it needs to be all the distributors in the label. No, at least one contact in US it's recommended, but not all the distributors need to be included in the labels, for at least for cosmetics and medicine. But for medical devices, I've seen always the distributor included in the label.
Thank you so much. And we have here last question is asking, could there be fees for a cosmetic product in the future?
Yeah, that's a good question. We don't know. Yeah, well, it could appear like they need to change make another law in the Congress to include that. So by now it's not a thing, but we don't know what could happen with new government. Like new laws can be approved and maybe a fee appeared, or maybe not. But that things take a long time. By now it's no.
Wonderful. I think those are questions for now, and it's 5 minutes past 12, so 1 hour and 5 minutes. So we're going to leave it now. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Thank you so much, Maria, for your guidance and sharing all this useful information. As I mentioned before, we will share the presentation and also the video recording with all the attendees, and you will be able also to find the recording in our YouTube channel at the Spain US Chamber website, which is www.spainuschamber.com. Thank you, Maria. Thank you for your time with us today.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, everyone, and have a great day. Goodbye.
Goodbye.